So lately, a few people in my comment sections have been like, hey, chill, man, what's up with the stories? We used to tap into you for the stories, bring back the stories. So, of course, telling stories for almost 6 years, 3 or 4 times a week, they were eventually going to run out, man. But anyway, I got a couple good ones left, and hopefully you will like this one. If you new to the channel and you have missed some of my older stories, I'm telling you, I got some bomb, great, funny stories. Type in 16 to Life, binge watch the best, and it's a playlist, and you will find a lot of great stories there.
90% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. 2 choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move. Whatever click you choose.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to Life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. Yeah, that's me gassing on that intro. And if you want to get that song, hit me up on my email, 16tolifemusic@gmail.com, and I'll give you the information on how to get it. All right, so I got a story for y'all today, man. The story is a little funny, but then again, it's not, right? But anyway, so last week sometime, man, I be tapping in with a good friend of mine. You know, I gave him a call, good friend of mine I've done a lot of time with, well-respected individual. And I'm not going to use his name for this story. And at the end, y'all will probably see why, right? So anyway, man, we chopping it up, right? Me and my homie, we chopping it up. We was in Ironwood together. Then, you know, eventually his points dropped down and he went across the street to Chuckawalla. Now, Ironwood, of course, as I have told you guys before, is in the city of Blythe, which is relatively close to Arizona, and it gets extremely hot down there. And literally right across the street, they have another prison that's called Chuckawalla, and it's a level 2 or whatever, right? So we on the phone, we chopping it up about old times and talking and, you know, laughing like we always do, wondering what's going on with this homie and that homie. And somehow, some type of way, we get on the topic of, like, I want to say somewhere like maybe around 2001, 2002, somewhere up in there, right? Suddenly they put out this memorandum in prison that everybody in prison is going to have to take these, give up some blood basically for these DNA tests, right? You know what I'm saying? So they coming around, you know, collecting blood. And so, of course, the purpose of them collecting this blood is to see if some of these dudes can be connected to old crimes and things like that, right? And so we was talking about that, and then so he started telling me about a partner of his, man, a good friend of his, man. So at the time, right, so this dude, my homie, and he's over there with this dude, right? Him and this dude they real cool. They be chopping it up and talking all the time. And I think he told me they worked together, and if they didn't work together, they would work in the back at some point in time, and then they would get released from work. And it would be like maybe 10, 15 minutes before, I think it was Young and the Restless came on, or some type of, one of them type of, you know, stories that they used to watch back, one of them soap operas that they used to watch back in the days. And he said, man, this dude was a good partner of his. You know, they'd go back and, you know, they'd sit at the same table every day and watch these soap operas. And, you know, they would sit there and chop it up. And he was telling me that if the dude, sometimes he would arrive a few minutes late, he would save his seat on the bench. And if my homie homie would arrive a few minutes late. This other dude, Ivan, his name was Ivan. This other dude, Ivan, would save his seat, and so, they was real cool. They be chopping it up, laughing and talking, all this old type of stuff. He said the dude, Ivan, was real cool. He also said Ivan was a real good chess player. So, he'd be in there smashing people on chess, and they would just be talking. Ivan was a regular dude. Ivan didn't gang bang. I believe he was from Pomona. And maybe around the time, man, I believe Ivan was probably in his late 30s, somewhere up in there, and he was due to go home soon. I think, according to my homie, Ivan only had 2 or 3 months left on his sentence, right? So in prison, we call that short. He was getting pretty short in terms of, short on his sentence, and he was getting ready to go home. So anyway, when they bring up the issue of this DNA test, Dubes is going over there. For the most part, Dubes is going over there and taking it. Ivan is huffing and puffing. He's complaining, and according to my homie, Ivan is pretty much fighting, taking this test tooth and nail. And so at some point, my homie, he starts to think about it. He's like, man, why you tripping, man? Just go over there and take the test. What's the big deal? My homie goes over there, he takes the test. I'm at Ironwood. I go over there and I take the test, and I don't know exactly what happened if you refuse to take the test, but they were probably just gonna put you in the hole and get some type of court order. This wasn't like they was asking you was gonna take this test. That's what you was gonna do. You was gonna take this test, right? So at some point in time, I guess Ivan says, man, okay, you know what? The hell with it, man. I'm going to go over here and take the test, right? So Ivan, he goes and takes the test, you know what I'm saying? So now things is, days is going on and stuff. My homie and this dude, they still hanging out, watching soap operas, The Young and the Restless, or whatever it was they loved to watch. You know what I'm saying? They still saving each other's seats, putting IDs down, talking and chopping it up, just doing what dudes in prison do. They over there chilling. Like I said, the dude, Ivan, he's getting ready to go home. My homie, he was a lifer at the time, so of course, he's doing what he needs to do, taking the necessary courses and stuff, trying to gain his freedom, right? And so now, they, like I said, they chopping it up or whatever. Now, I believe my homie told me that Ivan just happened to work on the yard crew, and that job entails, whatever may need to be done. One day, a wooden bench or something might need to be put out here on the yard, or some flowers may need to be dug up, or whatever needs to be done in terms of keeping, the yard around the prison looking cool and proper and whatever, right? So my homie telling me one day, man, Ivan is out there on the yard crew with a few other dudes, and I think he said Ivan had some big old giant pickaxe. Now, keep in mind, this is at a level 2, you know what I'm saying, and they out there and they supervised or whatever, and so the dudes is out there on the yards and they chilling and doing whatever they doing, man. And they look up and a gang of police start coming onto the yard. I mean, they talking like dudes in street clothing and just street police, FBI type looking dudes, right? And so you got these dudes down there on the yard in Chuckawalla wondering like, man, what the hell is going on? We ain't never seen none of this mess before. The dudes that hit the yard, according to my homie, they looking around, and they talking to people or like officials and people who work at the prison or whatever, guards and whatever. And they hit the yard, they looking around, and suddenly they spot who they spot, and they start walking real fast. And then all of a sudden they just take off at a run, and bam, they football tackle Ivan, spear Ivan, knock him to the ground, slam him down, handcuffing. People is like, wondering, man, what the hell is going on? They ain't never seen nothing like this in prison, right? Normally, if you do something in prison, they got a group, and they're really like, the FBI of the prison. We refer to them as the Goon Squad, and instead of the normal olive green suits, they have on the black suits. And anytime they hit the yard, people like, hey man, they go to Goon Squad, because normally, they're here to investigate some serious stuff, people on the yard selling narcotics or cell phones or what have you, so a lot of times when they hit the yard, anybody that's doing something wrong is spooked. And a lot of times, just from being in prison for so long, even if you ain't doing nothing illegal or wrong, you may get spooked, because they liable to go up in people's cells, go up in your cell, look all through your cell, tear everything up. But they don't hit the yard randomly. When they hit the yard, they have a specific goal in mind. But like I said, it wasn't even those dudes that hit the yard. It was the street police, FBI type looking dudes, according to my homie. And then they run over there and boom, they gang tackle Ivan, knock Ivan all to the ground. And so they handcuff him and they immediately take his big football ass. They walk him off the premises. They walk him off the grounds handcuffed. They don't take him to the hole. They get up out of there and leave the prison with Ivan, right? So everybody is wondering, like, man, damn, what the hell is going on with big ass Ivan, right? Because like I said, man, for the most part, Ivan is laid back. He stay out the way. He's not a gang member. He's past the age of being a young knucklehead running around doing stuff. So, in everybody's eye, he just another regular dude. You know what I'm saying? An unknown dude. Probably if you really don't know the dude or whatever, you ain't chopping it up and hanging with him. He ain't making a whole lot of noise. He's staying out the way. And then, of course, he only got now maybe a couple of weeks left to the house, right? So people is wondering, what the hell is up with Ivan, man? Well, God damn it, lo and behold, when truth be told, man, Ivan was a motherfucker known as the 60 Freeway serial killer, man. Man, yeah, crazy, man. Ivan is running around, getting high, smoking that shit. Then this dude would go pick up these females, these ladies of the night, and then they'd get high together, and then he would assault them, strangle them, and leave their bodies by the side of the road, man. This is what Ivan was into right now. And of course, at the time, all this is unbeknownst to my homie, because Ivan at the time is not in there for anything faulty. Ivan is in there for a robbery. So, everything that he's running around doing, it's unknown. Now, he had been doing this stuff, I think maybe 8, 9, 10 years or whatever. They are trying to catch this dude, but they hadn't caught this dude yet. And then keep in mind, back at that time, DNA was still a relatively new thing, and who knows if his DNA or whatever was in the DNA database. And obviously it was not, because when he went over there and took the blood work, and I guess everything got sent back in, they matched it to all these freeway killings and stuff this dude was doing. At one point, Ivan was, even after he unfortunately took the life of one of these ladies of the night, he would call in and taunt the police like, yeah, you guys better catch me before I do it again. What is that? That's number 5, number 6, or whatever. And so also, of course, unbeknownst to my homie and another individual, it was a dude on the yard who actually, his sister was one of the victims of Ivan. So, of course, while Ivan's crimes were no laughing matter whatsoever, my homie was telling me, he was like, yeah, chill, man. I'm not knowing, man. I'm running around. I'm hanging out. I'm buddy with this dude, man. And this dude is a serial rapist. This dude can't keep his hands to himself, man. That dude get high and hit that pookie, and then he want to go out here and do bad things, right? And so, yeah, my homie is telling me how he running around all pally with this serial rapist. You know what I'm saying? These dudes, they get off work, man, they run, they break a sweater, they speed walking, getting all hot and funky, trying to get back to the day room to get a seat so they can sit down and watch the young and the restless, you know what I'm saying? And then they talking about it, they wondering, talking about it, how Victor Newman is piping down Ashley Abbott and all this old type of stuff that's going on these type of shows and stuff like that, right? And just to keep it 100, y'all, man, I ain't never in my days watch no damn soap operas. I ain't never been interested in all that. But to each his own. This is something that a lot of individuals back in those days was interested in. And of course, so I had to do some research, right, and find out who were some of the main characters in The Young and the Restless, so I could throw that little part in. So yeah, man, they wondering, they sitting back watching who Victor Newman is knocking down and all this old type of stuff. They hanging out, chilling, chopping it up. They having a good old time, man. And my buddy said, oh man, come to find out, yeah, this dude is a serial rapist. And so I said, hey, homie, he said, yeah. I said, do you mind if I tell that story? He's like, no, man. I said, you want me to use your name? He said, oh, hell no, man. So the homie, he said, don't include me in that mess, man. He didn't want to be included in that, right? So, of course, I had never heard of the dude, man. So I went and done a little bit of research on the stuff. And, I don't even know if my homie knew this, and he gonna be probably mad about this. Not only was the dude a serial rapist, the dude was a rat. So when he was 17 years old, and of course the homie couldn't have known this unless the dude told him, which I'm sure he didn't. When he was 17 years old, him and another dude got caught up robbing stuff, right? And so his accomplice shoots and kills the clerk. So Ivan, he ends up informing and cooperating on his homeboy that or his partner that killed the clerk during this robbery, right? And so he gets a little bit of time. The dude gets a life sentence. And so Ivan had got caught up on the situation where he ratted around the age of 17, So he went and he done a few years or whatever it was. Then he gets out. He continues on with his life. And so according to the research that I done, somewhere in his younger years, early 20s, he became involved with drugs and started, robbing and doing that old type of stuff. So when my homeboy ran across him, he had been locked up. He had got a 10-year sentence for some robberies and stuff that he was doing, right? So in the event, had anybody looked into it, it would have only showed that he was involved in the robberies, because when he got up in the situation where he ratted on the dude, he was only 17 years old. So that is very unlikely that would have showed up if anybody had a check. So the time that he was serving when my homeboy ran across him was because around 1993, he had a string of robberies. And in 1994, he was eventually apprehended for the stuff and sent to the pen for a 10-year sentence. So when my homie, ran into him, that's what he was on. He was doing the sentence for the robbery. And so me, I'm a naturally inquisitive motherfucker by nature, right? So I asked the homie, I said, hey, homie, now, of course, in hindsight, or after he got arrested, after they ran in there and gang tackled the dude and speared his big ass like they was Stone Cold Steve Austin, I asked him, I said, hey, homie, did you happen to notice anything weird or odd about his behavior up in there, realizing you knew what you knew? He said, well, yeah, he said, after I thought about it, he said, a lot of times, man, when we would be in the presence of female COs, the dude would just get all weird and like he'd be lusting and staring and just looking all hard and crazy. But at the time, my homie's saying, of course, they all been locked down for quite some time, so it's not necessarily unusual. I don't, he didn't necessarily say the dude would go overboard, but he said that after he sat back and thought about it, Ivan did engage in some weird type behavior. So like I mentioned before, I had never heard of the dude. So after I got off the phone with my homie last week, I kind of researched the dude, looked him up a little bit. And if my memory serves me correct, I believe he was convicted for like 6 or 7 unalivings, right? And then later on down the line, I believe he ended up confessing to 2 more. So eventually they ended up giving the dude the death penalty, and the dude got sent to death row. Then I forget exactly how long it was, maybe a few years ago, the governor, he put a moratorium on the death penalty, which basically means that he halted the death penalty in California. And so eventually all the prisoners they had housed on death row who had death sentences was shipped out to these regular prisons. Some of these dudes hit level 2, some of these dudes hit level 3, some of them hit level 4s, just according to their points. So so now you got dudes, man, who 5-6 years ago was locked up in a single man cell and was facing death in San Quentin. Now they're on these regular yards, sitting back, chilling, enjoying, having ice cream, and so on and so forth, right? And so it's a big difference and a change in program for a lot of these individuals who have been confined to a cell and confined to San Quentin for the last 20, 25, 30 years. And now, they're on these main lines, doing all the things that a mainline prisoner can do, man. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that story to you, man. Like I said, I asked my homie, man, you want me to mention you in the story? He said, hell no, man. Keep me about that shit. Anyway, man, y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.